It was a gray day, a perfect day for a walk in the park. But it was more than cloudy. It was a cold, cold day when I took to walking in the woods. A light snow dusting the path. I sucked in the fresh air until it hurt, then sucked in a little less, just to the point of bliss. A fallen tree like a praying mantis bridging the river. The swish of wind kissing dried leaves, all interwoven and leaking through the weave of my hat. But my joy was soon interrupted by a man on the path, seemingly angry and insisting that I stop to talk to him. He had this idea in his head that he wouldn't let go of, about some difference that separated the two of us. My mind drifted as he yammered on, and I found myself wondering if today's snow would pile up like the blizzard that came 3 weeks ago. I refocused, though, when I thought the guy had finally reached his point, but came to realize that this guy was just beginning to rev himself up. He had a real rant going, if you will. I considered walking just right past him as he kept talking, but decided that would have been a little bit too rude. So I tuned out his tirade by drawing my focus, and then briefly his, to the rich scenery within view. Clumps of moss still green this time of year amidst dancing swipes of lichen. Crystals of ice perched shelf-like along the riverbank. Current churning with a sense of urgency. Frigid stone, rigid against a kaleidoscope of motion. Water that would freeze if it but paused for an instant. Then, quite loudly, the man switched back to his weary topic. Said he had no clue what I was yapping about. Your bookish observations about nature, it's the jabber of poets. We need to talk about our natural differences, he told me. Ha! Give me a break. He insisted that my skin was a different color from his skin. And I said it likely was. You know, if I randomly selected 15 of my friends, I'm certain I'd count 15 gradations of pigment, should I study their skin. So what? We're all basically some shade of brown. But he was truly hot and bothered about his specific skin color and how it compared to mine. Then he asked me which skin color I thought should control society. Oh, I had to laugh. It was a pretty funny thought. But he didn't like that I was laughing, so I changed our focus once again. Look there, I told him, at these green-tinged plates of ice, where they broke and then refroze into a mosaic of pattern, like a tapestry of halted motion. And then compare this image with that of these trees, barren of leaves, yet still standing tall, posed so poised through the dead of winter. Is this snow and ice the brutal enemy of each tree? Bitter forces bent on annihilating these live, many-limbed beings? Are trees, because of their unmoving roots, victims because they can't run for the warmth of a shelter? But what happens if you overlap one picture with the other? Pause a moment and hold them both in mind. If your mind separates the storm from the forest, then this overlap will appear cruel, I told the man. Do you see ugly when holding both pictures in your mind simultaneously? If you do, let me urge you to try again. More ice and another tree. See if you can hold them in your mind with a sense of oneness, the tree anticipating the cold, and the cold embracing the tree. A cleansing connection, hibernating wood tied to crystallized water, a meeting of strengths. See that bark thick with snow? It's an extra blanket comforting the ringed core of a tree until the thaw of spring. As I overlap such pictures in my mind, I don't see cruelty, I find beauty. At this, the man looked at me like my brain had lost the charge of its batteries. But before he could speak, I asked him to try this once more. Compare a tree to the bitter winds, piled drifts, or floes of ice. Can you see a friendship there? One that replaces the worldview, where focusing on differences leads to the creation of an enemies list. I pointed to a squirrel digging up the treasure of an acorn, Canadian geese tucked into the grasses, or paddling the icy stream. They're the same as you and me, I told him. Though different in our purposes, shape, or form, we're all soaking in the same moment, all in interaction on this gray and snowy day. But he would hear none of it. Comparing yourself to an animal or tree. How crazy can you be? Well, humans are animals, you know, I told him. Don't you see? Don't you see? But he answered by suggesting dozens more differences that delineate him from me. Your expressions, your posture, your upbringing and clothing, your traditions. His list went on and on. You know, I told him, there are probably 3 million things different between us, should science show up to measure them. But my thought, gag me with a spoon. What a boring obsession. Had I gotten through to him? No, I don't know. But he did stop speaking at that point. And to my offer of a handshake, well, he couldn't go there. So, having nothing more to say myself, I continued on my way. Further down the path, I saw autumn leaves still bright with color, preserved in a frozen puddle, and cattails like a gathering of cigar-smoking old men. You know, I do hope, though, that man heard some of what I spoke, and later on that day, while looking out his window, I visualized him breathing in the sunset as the beginning of a new way of being.
That didn't really happen.
Yes, it did. Just like that.
Telling stories again, Dad?
Uh-huh.
As for you, young man, you need to give your dad a break. He just told 2 tales.
I don't want to hear a made-up story anyways. Sorry, Dad.
It's not made up.
Could you bring me that picture book Mom bought today?
Me? You want me to read?
Please, Grandma.
Well, all right.